Welcome to the Body Science Podcast. As always, the information contained in this podcast is for the information purposes only and is not designed to diagnose or be prescriptive to treat, prevent, or manage any injury, disease, or other health-related condition.
So, hey, welcome to BSC HQ. Today is a bit different. I'm Sheree and delighted to have two other beautiful women in the room with me. So, first of all, introducing Chloe, our head of marketing. And our special guest today is Rowena, who has founded the Butterfly Effect. And we're here today to have a chat to Rowena about what's involved and what is the Butterfly Effect. So, Rowena, can you tell us a bit about yourself, please?
I can. Firstly, thank you so much for having me today. It's an absolute pleasure. First time doing a podcast. So
Ooh, nice. Me too.
Oh, really? Okay, good. So Butterfly Effect was founded in 2015. It started in an affiliate, which is a CrossFit word for a gym that's affiliated with CrossFit. And it was an affiliate that I used to co-own for a number of years. And it started as a way to bring, and I want to say it's a bit controversial, but I do unfortunately stereotype in this instance. It was started in a way to bring more awareness and mindfulness to the way women approach their health and fitness. So when you walk into a gym, what normally happens is a coach greets you and says something along the lines of, how can I help? What are your goals?
What do you want to do?
What do you want to do? Yeah. And 9 times out of 10, I was finding that women were saying that they wanted to tone up or look a certain way. And hardly ever did anybody walk into the gym and say, I want longevity.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Longevity.
Yep.
Strong. Now maybe a little bit more than back then, but longevity never. It was always about that short-term aesthetic reason. And that is, and I don't want to take away, there's nothing wrong with people wanting to look a certain way or to, do what they believe will make them happy, but that's not what will preserve you. It will not what will bring you happiness. It's not what we're here
Prevent
for.
you breaking bones as you're 100%. Older and
enjoying your life with your family and your friends and your work and all the other things that mean just as much or more so than your hour that you spend in the gym. So it was a way to bring mindfulness back. And the Butterfly Foundation is a cause that was very close to my heart. The lady that founded that is a lady that is in Melbourne. She's a mum of 2 kids. And at the time, there was no support for her kids that were going through some distorted eating. And herself had also suffered from an eating disorder. And she found again that there was no support for her. So she wanted a way in order to support people who were struggling. And so it was a bit of an amalgamation between the Butterfly Foundation and then the Butterfly Effect was born out of that. And it was women coming together. You did not need to be the most elite athlete. Yeah. It could be your everyday, person that could partner with a coach or could partner with your sister or your daughter and come and celebrate movement, celebrate what your bodies were born to do. And we just found that in the first year, it went exceptionally well. It was the days before, Instagram and Facebook were really a thing. People didn't really use it for marketing in the way that they do now, which sounds crazy because that's only 2015. That's only 9 years ago. But, as you guys would know, it's evolved so much since then. And so the way that it was marketed was literally a, PDF flyer that went out on Facebook that said, come to this event. It's women's only. And it sold out within 3 days. And then the next year it sold out very quickly again in under 12 minutes. And it just continued to gather momentum. And then we just saw a lot of organic growth that
Can I take you back a step when you said that the whole goal was driven by your observation in your own gym environment? Did you notice that was different for males? What are you here to achieve? A little bit, yes. Either men keep their cards a bit closer to their chest, which I have a sneaking suspicion is the case. Yes.
Also, as well, in a gym environment, the male is king and has been. They've been involved in gyms for a lot longer than what females have. They felt more comfortable in that space as well. And then if you take it one step further into a CrossFit environment or a functional fitness environment where you're throwing what can be quite scary and intimidating when you walk into that type of setting, they're throwing big weights. So males would often talk about strength. That was their primary reason. Yeah. It definitely falls back to an aesthetic reason as well. And we're finding that more and more as you delve into the problems that men and women are both facing. But I think as a byproduct of being more comfortable in a gym and comfortable with the fact that gaining muscle is a good thing, they end up being, that they get longevity because they've got muscle mass as a byproduct of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So just before you mentioned marketing the event has changed because of the introduction, or the growth rather, of Instagram, Facebook, how that, comes to life. Have you also witnessed that having an impact on people's motivations for coming to the gym?
Yes. Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit more about that? Is it positive? Is it negative, or just different?
I think it's positive. It's definitely a positive space. But it needs to be looked at through the lens of positivity in order to draw that from it. So what social media has enabled us to do is be exposed to people doing incredible things that we weren't able to see before unless we walked into a news agency and bought a magazine or a women's health or men's health or something, or watched the television or the Olympics. What social media has enabled us to do is to see normal people do what we would have thought was impossible and prove that it can be done. And I think that growing up, the younger generation are now seeing this. And there's been some very clever companies that have been on the precipice of that change and have managed to pioneer it through the launch of things like athletic wear, becoming something that people will now wear out. That again, going back to 2015, we were not wearing tights and active wear to a cafe. That was
back
cool.
a few years earlier, and we were wearing leotards though, with G-string leotards.
I mean, bring that back, by all means.
But maybe within the walls of the gym.
Yes, yeah. I mean, thank goodness that was phased out a little bit, but yes, and I think people wear it now as a badge of honor. They're proud to say that I work out. But back then, that wasn't so much the case. It was something that you did behind a closed door in order to walk through another door to look and present in a certain way. So I think the conversations around fitness have changed. I think the information that we can draw from looking at our telephone is quite extraordinary. But and I know I'm going to contradict my original answer to you. The downside to that is it has also created a magnifying glass around distorted, behavioral patterns and what we deem to be healthy and what we know to be healthy. And I think there needs to be a lot more education that's accessible in a level that people can relate to, that shows what wellness really is at the core and what being fit really means versus how people present. And it can be very different.
So, Rowena, can we just talk a little bit more about the name, the Butterfly Effect, and the real purpose behind that? Like you mentioned, the Butterfly Foundation inspiration, but I feel like there's more to your story in the space.
There is, yeah. So going back, and I guess we have to go back quite far to the way I grew up. So, and I'm not that comfortable with telling the story because it's something that's become a part of the journey, but I normally just talk to the what I mentioned before, which is the general, which is where it started in the gym. So forgive me if I start to sound a little bit.
And you don't need to speak.
Okay.
I wasn't actually even assuming that. I was just thinking the Butterfly Effect is actually really a beautiful name. And when you Google Butterfly Effect, you get various movies and all sorts of things, and it's obviously quite a meaningful term.
Yeah.
So wanted to just talk more generally about that. Yeah.
Okay. So growing up, I grew up in the UK. You could probably tell from my accent. And my mum is from Iran. My father's from England. And my mum she suffered from anorexia. So she had distorted eating as well. She also, unfortunately, had an addiction to drugs and alcohol. So and the reason behind that for her as well was that she grew up in a very unusual situation. My grandfather, so her dad was next in line to the king of Iran.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. And so she grew up in a palace with, servants and people that did things for her. And then the military coup happened. And so she was without a country. So when she was in her mid-20s, she found herself in the UK. And my grandfather got immunity to live in the UK, but unfortunately, with what was occurring, and again, it's very spotty, the history, because for protection, she wasn't allowed to talk a lot about it. So my knowledge of it dips in and out, but this is what I know to be true in the story. So he died of a heart attack. And so she very literally was riches to rags story. And unfortunately with that, and it's hard for me to grasp because that wasn't my upbringing. I wasn't brought up in a palace with, servants doing things for me, and very far from it. But the version is she just struggled to cope a little bit with reality. So unfortunately though, in Iran, women are not something that are thought highly of. It is all the males that are the ones that are the leaders, and that's the upbringing that she had as well. So being a female, she had, her narrative to me was, as a female, my role in society was to look a certain way. So and that was constantly drummed in. So that, along with her suffering in and out of being, depressed and having the eating disorder. And it's that my whole narrative was, unless you looked a certain way, you were not a good person. Fat was something to be feared at all costs, because if you were fat, you were a bad person. I didn't even know what fat was, it's a term, but that was the story that I was told. So I grew up fearing food. I didn't eat much. I didn't have an eating disorder, but I didn't eat much. I thought that, if you could live off a Diet Coke and maybe some soup or something, then that was a good thing, because then you were avoiding getting fat. I didn't know how to cook. I had no aspiration really to learn at the time. So I went all the way through to my early 20s not knowing how to boil an egg. So
that's all right. I've got kids that age and
okay, good.
They struggle sometimes.
But okay, good. It's true, actually. I still barely know how to cook it.
There is a skill. 3 minutes or 5.
Very true. And then I moved out when I was 15. It was a turbulent childhood. So I moved out when I was 15, went traveling and landed in Australia. And there was a period in my early 20s where I found myself homeless. And so when you don't have basic, what we view as, what we take for granted, like sitting on a couch or sleeping in a bed or sitting in a chair. Those things are taken away. And then, of course, food gets taken away. You have nothing but time on your hands to really have a really deep think about what becomes important. And I can tell you right now, food is one of the most important things, as is sleeping in a bed, because your back really does hurt when you don't have that. So I lived off bread and jam, and there were a few times you'd walk past cafes and you could see how much waste there was. And, you'd walk past and maybe take a piece of toast or a sausage because it was just being left. And it was the greatest thing, just to have these things. And my tooth became so decayed in my mouth that it literally fell out one day. I was chewing on a piece of bread and jam, and I could sort of feel this crunching and thought, what's that? And I could feel my tooth sort of as I was swallowing it, which is horrific. And it was probably the tooth that I'd have to say was my turning point, where I vowed that once I wasn't residentially challenged anymore, that I would really rethink some basic things. And that's what I did. I managed to eventually save enough money to sleep in a hostel, and then a hostel to like a bed and breakfast where you pay for the week. And then from there, I was able to get a small studio apartment, and I had started to do a boot camp. Again, those things are just up and coming. I wasn't someone at school that did a lot of sport. I always rode horses, but I wasn't sporty per se. I was just active. I moved, but definitely not sport. And I started to do this boot camp because I wanted to move my body, and I really enjoyed it. I loved being outside. I loved the space. And the trainer at the time that was doing the boot camp offered me a bit of a lifeline, actually. I was very blessed with some things that happened that sort of led me to this point. But he said to me, have you ever thought about becoming a personal trainer? And I was like, God, no. Like, I was not someone that was picked for school sports, let alone being a personal trainer. But I loved moving, loved it. I loved being outdoors and the feeling and the endorphins and, feeling just strong and now eating better as well. And he said, I think you would be really good at it. And I was like a bit taken back at the time. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, I would love to if you think I could do it. And he said through his work, he could sponsor. His girlfriend at the time was also wanting to be a personal trainer. So he said it would assist her as well. So we could go together and do this. And then I could work in the boot camps and it would be good. So I did that. I became a personal personal trainer. And from there, it just progressed. I was, working more with people, working in group fitness, which was always my love. And constantly always reinforcing that message to myself. And then what I realized in others as well, that there are so many more important things to life than what you look like. It is how you feel, first and foremost, always. And yeah, the evolution, kind of went from there.
What a powerful story.
Thank you.
And so the butterfly morphing, I'm presuming?
Yeah.
Yeah. How powerful.
Yeah. And everything that happens in your life has a ripple effect. It really does.
Exactly.
You think sometimes, and, something, a chance meeting or a conversation or an interaction, or you never know just how powerful a moment is going to be, and whether that's apparent to you at the time or later on. And that's everyone walking around. Everything that we do is has a meaning to us. It's just what we choose to do with it, and timing, I think.
So taking that opportunity, like with that background, and then the inspiration that you've had and the wanting to assist particularly females in this journey, did you ever envisage the creation of what it is now as the Butterfly Effect competition?
I didn't, not at the time. It was honestly, I looked at it as a way within my circle of community of the people that I could directly influence. And I thought that would be enough. But as it turned out, the stories, again, you never know what's going to happen. Just the stories from people resonating with the message, celebrate your body. That is phenomenal. And, we get hundreds now of versions of people's stories about how they felt or the journey that they're on. So the answer is no.
It's so cool, isn't it, when you see that impact? And I think, I'm sure it happens in lots of groups of people, but I know personally I've been involved in groups of girls, and when you get together and we say, we're going to do this event, and then, you kick each other along and you're training and whatever, and it might be, I'm a cyclist, so I do lots of longer rides, and, people, you go from riding not much at all, and then you do, 100 and something Ks in an event or something, and just the joy of having done that together, celebrating together, it's like it's a really cool thing.
So
and
cool.
It doesn't have to be female only, but I do find that the energy that you generate from a group of girls, and this is just about me right now, it's not about my job or my kids or my whatever. I'm devoting this time to me, and I think that's a really special thing that as females we don't always do because of the number of hats that we wear. And obviously your event targets women of all ages.
Yes.
So you're getting a lot of that, and I'm sure you hear lots and lots of stories about that. And taking people from I have no time to train. Chloe, we've had this conversation, a hardworking mum of two really quite young children. Do you want to share, how you've built your love of training back in sport back into your agenda?
Oh, I have loved to move for many years as well. And absolutely, it was something that fell by the wayside after having kids, which is absolutely not a unique story, I think, for many people. And it was Sheree that said to me actually one day, she's like, Chloe, if you want to join the gym, go and join the gym. Find the time, go. And I think I went the next week. And that was when we introduced the 9-day fortnight, which we are very fortunate to have here. And I then knew at least once a fortnight I was going to go. And I managed to get it to a couple of times a week. And for me, it's at 10 p.m. when everyone else is in bed, but it's still going. And I still feel good after it. And I still feel good for the rest of the week if I'm getting that in a couple of times a week. Exactly like you say, that is time for me. It's actually really nice because there's nobody there. And it's quiet. And as a mother, many people will know quiet is... it's not something to be taken for granted.
No.
So when you look around and there is 2 other people in the gym, you're like, well, 1, I don't have to wait for any weights, and 2, no one's going to talk to me.
Yeah.
and that's something really special. But then I think also the thing that I have found so empowering again is feeling strong and feeling good and going, I am succeeding at this thing that I want to achieve, purely on my own. You know, I've decided I want to lift that weight, and I've managed to lift that weight by myself, and maybe my form's not awesome or whatever it might be, but, you know, you're getting there and you're figuring it out along the way.
So once again, it's about how you feel. It's not actually looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I don't want to look like this. It's actually about how you feel and the energy you bring to your family, to your job, to the fact that I did dedicate some time to myself to do something I really wanted to do. You know, I made time for myself, which is awesome. So there would be so many stories for that.
It doesn't make those head stories go away. I think so many people are always, you know, you still have to stop yourself from going down the route of what do I look like when I'm looking in the mirror at the gym or on the way out the door or whatever it might be. But I think that in and of itself is quite empowering to actually go, you know what? I can see that there's an option for me to think like that, and I'm choosing not to take it.
Yeah.
That's so empowering. And I certainly was a person that used to go to the gym and say, I want to look a certain way. And I'm so proud of myself now that I can go to the gym and be like, I want to be strong. I have a performance goal. I have a longevity goal. I want to be able to run with my children, pick up my groceries when I'm old, you know, all of these different things that you don't even think of when you're in that other frame of mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what you're doing is so special for so many people.
And why I sort of almost tried to put words in your mouth incorrectly earlier on about being strong, you know, was that the motivation? But you spoke about longevity, which is equally and as powerful. And I know, you know, as I'm getting into the latter end of 50s, don't like that idea, but that's where it's at. You know, lots and lots of my friends and everything, you know, we're getting older, and just watching people with the importance of things like bone strength.
Yeah.
And, you know, it is so critical. And then just to see the impact of people who have taken note of that and looked after their bodies in that regard versus those that haven't. And you've got a friend who's super fit. She actually competes internationally and well in her 60s, and unfortunately had a fall and broke a hip, and learnt that she had, you know, weak bones, because even though she was so fit and aerobically competed, she hadn't looked after her bone health. And so now, you know, she's now had hip replacement and she's back up and running, no stopping her, but has learned that actually she didn't have the full equation. And so there's all these factors that you have to take into account. And the female physiological body is quite different, obviously, to males, and if we've been quite sedentary in our careers or in our choice of life or whatever, it's just super important to look after every aspect of that. But something that I'm sure you both know and have heard lots of stories about is the impact of not so much the outcome as in I'm looking stronger, I can now lift that weight or whatever, but is actually that impact of how you feel, the endorphins that get pumped and everything.
Yeah.
And in an event environment, that is just magnificent, isn't it?
Through the roof.
I can only imagine the 1,000 competitor. Tell us some of that.
The best way to relate it back that I found is and I love live music. Do you guys love live music? I think most people do. Yeah. And you can go to a concert sometimes and it's just electric. Like you feel the energy that's come from the music that you're listening to, from the performer, and then from the people around you. It's very similar to that. Like if you add just a little bit of nerves in at the beginning that you don't get at a music festival. But once that first workout's underway and people have done and it's going, so it's just... It's a really cool feeling. And you can't help but be amped by it. And you know that it's working because not only are the competitors exceeding their expectations. So 9 times out of 10 in a competition, it doesn't matter whether it's a fitness, functional fitness, or if it's a run, or most people will outperform their expectations because they haven't changed as a person. It's the energy that you get from participating in something like that. So, but then you look at the spectators, and that's how I can always tell as well, as if it's transcending to what's going on there. And they are just as invested in what's happening on the field. And that's cool.
Yeah. It's absolutely.
Yeah. Because they then become part of the experience as well, for the athlete, for, our staff, for ourselves as well. It's great.
Yeah. So, Rowena, I know we're going to run a series of these podcasts, so we won't keep you too long here today, but I just wanted to perhaps throw it open. Chloe, BSc, sports nutrition, obviously we're involved in a lot of events across a lot of different spectrums, a lot of different sports, a lot of different fitness spaces, a lot of nutrition spaces. How and why the butterfly effect for BSc?
Ooh, I was going to ask the question of Rowena. So I think this was actually the second year that we spoke about BSc partnering with Butterfly Effect. And I think I'm super excited to see it come to life, because I think for everything that we've spoken about today and everything that, I still feel like a newcomer here at almost 3 years, and with this BSc being around for 25. But from everything that I have seen of the 25 years of history, BSc has been here supporting and promoting females in sport and fitness for a lot longer than what the industry has, and in a far more credible way. And actually supporting nutritional needs and supporting performance, as opposed to purely what that athlete looks like. And we were just having the conversation prior to this about the commentary around different Olympians, and is it on their performance or is it what they look like? And I think BSc has been so credible and had such integrity in that space for a long time. To have the opportunity to partner with someone like the Butterfly Effect, who are bringing that to life in a concentrated environment, and to your point earlier, having everyone from teens up to over 60s competing, that's so cool. And I think powerful. In a society where now we are seeing this weird kind of generational split a lot of the time, like it's Gen Zs versus millennials versus boomers versus whatever, a lot of the time for really arbitrary reasons. I think to have a community space where all these women are working together and lifting each other up, I think that's so phenomenal. And if we are doing a job in helping to promote that positive message around nutrition and performance and health and happiness, that's a huge win in my book. And I think as a marketer, marketing can be used for good or evil, right? Like that is marketing. And I think I've said to the team here, we have a huge job to uphold ethical and moral standards where not everybody will do that. And we have to remember that in a small group, to your earlier point, one look, one comment, what interaction can have a huge impact on a person's life. The things that we say do impact as a brand can have a huge impact on a huge number of people. Yep. So the responsibility for us is so much higher. So making the choice to partner with good, credible brands, competitions, partners, I think is just so important, and it's just so exciting. So I'm really excited to have the opportunity.
Thank you. From the bottom of our hearts. And I want to speak on behalf as well of my business partner who couldn't be here today, but she would have loved to, Carly, who's been an integral part of this journey as well. And so both of us have been, we were so excited when you agreed to come on board with us, because I've loved your brand for a long time. And I've said it to Chloe over the few conversations that we had leading to this point. And I've watched you guys from afar. And I've loved everything that you've stood for. I think you're one of the few companies that say and do what you mean in this space.
So much a core part of our DNA. And, we're speaking in my role, we get faced with many decisions about, is that the right thing to do? Is it going to be good for business? Sometimes, like you turn down things that might have a massive financial bonus for you, but if they don't sit well, and, I think that's one of the reasons that we're so successful with our 25-year history and with some of the positions that we can play in conversations we can have at certain tables. It really is a reflection of just that consistent behaviour across our team that we instill from, at all levels, which is really, really consistent. So, I really look forward to chatting to you again.
Thank you so
much. And thank you so much for joining us today.
My absolute pleasure. Yeah. Thank you again. Thank you.
So we had a really good chat with Sheree a little bit earlier, and we have a few questions left to run through. So I'm just going to pop through those. We have had a really good chat around your journey to get here. What are some of the biggest changes you're witnessing in female fitness as a whole, I guess, with the interactions you're having with different women in the gym and more broadly with Butterfly?
Ooh, it's a good question. And it's developing so quickly as well. So today's answer will actually be very different than if you'd asked me this 12 months ago. What I've noticed is that we're seeing rapid change. If I start with, I guess something that can be measured, the strength of the women from when we first started, and I mean physical strength, not mental strength, but physical strength. If you took a beginner athlete and you looked at maybe what the average that they were capable of lifting for a 1 rep max, and again, I'm going to pull some figures out of my butt here, but let's say if you asked a beginner athlete to do a 1 rep max clean, you would on average probably find that the beginner athlete would come out anywhere between 30 to 35 kilos, maybe get to 40, and that would be considered a pretty decent lift. Now what we're seeing is beginner athletes, and I've just had the privilege of coming back through from quite a few New Zealand events, and I'll use Auckland as an example. Absolutely outstanding. The level of strength of those ladies was phenomenal. We saw the beginner athletes come out and warm up on like 70 or 80 kilos for a clean, which is just insane.
And I'm thoroughly terrified for the event.
I was, and it's just, I guess to summarize, it has just leveled up. And to touch on a question that you asked me at the beginning of the podcast, which was, I guess, linked to what are we seeing in the change with social media as well, and whether it's had a positive or a negative impact. I'll touch on this again. I believe it's the part that social media has played. It's had such a positive impact on what people now perceive to be the norm, that the norm has raised the standard. And so the standard has escalated with it. Yeah. And so that's what I'd say is the biggest change, is that we're just seeing stronger people come out at a beginner level, which is just pushing the standard up. It's really cool.
Where do you see the evolution of women's fitness going, do you think?
Another great question. Hopefully it's going into a more positive space. I think we're carrying a lot of demons from our past, and we're slowly becoming more mindfully aware of the narratives of art that history has dictated for us for so long, and not actually our story. And we have the possibility now and the opportunity to create new stories. So I see the evolution of fitness as something that the media is going to take a lot more seriously. As a result of that, we're going to be considered equal. And it's, although people say we are now, I think what's happening at the moment, and we spoke about this off camera, or even with the most recent Olympics, we're showing that we're still not. So that's my hope, and that's where I see the evolution of fitness happening.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Like, let's hope that's exactly where it goes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess following on from what you've just said and the history of butterfly and your own personal history, I guess many of our histories, nutrition can be a touchy subject.
Yes.
How do you navigate that with people, whether it's in the gym or in in the butterfly competition?
It's a touchy subject because it's very personal and personable to each person. Also, as I want to say, I'm not a qualified nutritionist, so it's not something that I can talk to. All I can do is point people in the right direction of people that are qualified. And it's for us, it's about finding those people that will give advice that's measured and is not a diet-centric, copy and paste textbook situation. I have to be careful with that because I don't want to say that just because we're on the evolution of women's fitness and celebrating, I said it before, but I really want to make this clear. I think that everyone has the choice individually to what's good and right for them. So I'm not anti-diet, but I'm not pro-diet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it really should be about what that person perceives to be the most important thing for them and what they think is important, and then finding the right match for that person and then pointing them in the right direction. What I do know to be true is recovery is so important. And when you're training at this level, you need to make sure you're nourishing and looking after your body. And recovery is something that happens after every single session that you do. So I think that should be first and foremost what we're thinking about. And also something that you can do for the rest of your life as well. So something that feels natural and works well with you.
I think it's so interesting. We obviously have so many incredible female athletes that we work with here.
Yeah.
Some of whom have just done mind-blowing things over in Paris, and talking to some of them, so quite young female athletes. And it's so refreshing to hear some of the conversation when I've heard other male athletes also asking, like, what do you eat? How do you train? And they're like, we just get as many calories in as we can because we're training so hard. We're burning so much fuel. And it's actually so refreshing to hear young females be able to say, I just eat whatever I need to eat to get as many calories in to serve the purpose of my body and to fuel my performance.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that so many of us are going to take such a long time to get our heads around.
Yeah. Because it's scary.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and we're taught that it's scary. We're taught that that if you eat too much, then the direct result of that is getting bigger. And then bigger is something to be feared because society says that being bigger is not something that people aspire to be. You're not looked at in the right way when you're bigger, and it's so incorrect. And training for performance is vastly different from training for aesthetics.
Yes.
And you have to look and behave a different way for each one. So we're about performance at the core. So,
yes. And I guess that comes back to your point, right, around understanding what's important for you, understand what you're training for right now, and therefore fueling your body in the right way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which is that's awesome. You've talked a little bit about the motivation behind making Butterfly female only. Mm-hmm. Do you want to elaborate on that anymore before I ask my follow-on question?
Ooh. Not really. I think, I'd love to include males as well. Absolutely. And I think maybe in the future, there may be a time and a place for that. But at the moment, females are where we're at. So, yeah.
Have you had any negative commentary around the fact that it's female only?
No.
That's awesome.
No, which is a good thing. But in saying that, not negative, but I've had males say that they want something like this. So
like they want a male only event, or
it doesn't need to be male only. They just want to partake in it. And because the branding's pink, and I'm actually not a pink person. Carly and I, my business partner, we're not pink people. There's nothing wrong with pink people, but I don't actually gravitate towards pink as a natural thing. But and the reason I'm saying this, that at the time the color pink was chosen primarily because it stands out. And I wanted something to be so unapologetically female that it was just so in your face that it was a female-based thing, almost to just be loud and proud with it, rather than hiding in the shadows. But males love pink. It's a thing. Like any opportunity. Yes. Exactly. Any opportunity. And we have So our equipment that we have is all custom for the butterfly effect that we built on the Gold Coast. Very lucky we work with an amazing equipment supplier, which is again faster, and they've really enabled us to express ourselves in the pink place. But we've got custom pink barbells, pink rigs. We've got pink flooring coming in, and the guys just see it and they want
to get involved.
Yeah.
It's fun, right? I guess fitness hasn't always been fun.
No.
So it's adding the element of, I guess, joy and fun and making things a little bit less serious.
Absolutely. Yeah. Less like a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
So obviously it is a CrossFit style event.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think it is about that has drawn these women in? And do you think you would have had the same success had it been a different type of fitness or a different type of sport?
Well, we're not CrossFit branded. And the reason we haven't gone down that path yet is because we wanted to make sure that it felt inclusive for everyone across any different type of fitness domain. So I'll talk to it more about being in the functional fitness space, because that at our core is really what we're about. It's about being functionally fit so that you can lead an active, healthy life. So I think the short answer to you is yes, because I continuously try and talk to people across all different types of fitness domains, but it just tends to be that the CrossFit environment, they're fiercely competitive in a good way, and they love a good old fashioned kind of get in and stuff, lift some weights and that type of stuff. Yeah. So we try and cover all bases where we have that opportunity for the advanced athletes and the intermediate athletes to really, do what they love there. And then in the beginner category, we really try and make it a little bit more inclusive and more cardio focused. There's still weights involved, but it's a lot less skill. And then we can talk to the people that don't necessarily do this as a common practice. Yeah.
That's really cool. You also mentioned before around the difference that you saw, say, in the Kiwi athletes when you were just in New Zealand.
Yeah.
What sort of a difference are you seeing now that you've been, I guess you haven't been to an Australian event so far this year, but in previous years,
yeah.
Then also the UK.
Yes. The Kiwis know how to party. The community is strong. It's just, so I've talked about the women being really strong, but the community is strong. Like they love their sport. They back their athletes. And in the functional fitness space, CrossFit space, we call everyone an athlete. So, if you go for a run a couple of times a week, you are an athlete, like you are performing. So, they come out and they really get behind. So Kiwis are phenomenal for that. And we've got an event actually this weekend on Sunday in Wellington. And I already know that it's going to be phenomenal because of the community spirit. UK again, now we see some great athletes, highly skilled is what I'm seeing over in the UK. Like they take their gymnastics very seriously. They take the sport very seriously as well. And they're so polite. It's such a polite, I know I don't have to worry about things like marshalling, like they are there on the right time. So I think UK are punctual. That's the term that I'll use. Still phenomenal though. And again, you see correlations across, the girls are just wicked. When the music starts and the clock says 3, 2, 1, go, they're ready.
Yeah. Nice. We already spoke a little bit earlier on about why BSC was a good fit for you. So I won't make you go through that again. So my final question would then be, what do you see the butterfly effect becoming? Like what's next?
Another great question. Just had a strategy meeting actually with Carly about this. Like for us, it's about creating a movement. So we want to continue to grow that movement. We would love to, growth is obviously part of the strategy, but we would love to put on bigger stadium events for the girls in key areas that we're in already. So Gold Coast is our flagship. It's where it was born. We've got 1,100 women competing this year, which is just incredible. We're hoping to replicate that again over the next few years in New Zealand. We've hired the Judot for New Zealand next year in Auckland, and we're looking at a South Island location too. And we will replicate that over in the UK, somewhere around London, I think. From there, we've been looking at going into Asia as well, going into the States, anywhere that we can see where people are calling for us. And we're at that point now, which is so exciting that we're getting call outs. Social media is
exciting.
telling us where to go. And that's just organically happened at the moment. So if we can facilitate it, we absolutely will. And if we continue to give back the way that we are, that's what growth looks like for us. So just be really mission focused, I think.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Question from the audience is, do you have anything that you want to say to women who might be thinking about getting into this space and they're not quite sure about it? There are a few in this office who are, like me, training for 6 weeks away and they're a little bit scared about it. So I think any words of wisdom?
Yes. Don't be afraid. This isn't an event that's designed to make you push boundaries and, all those slogans that the fitness community give you, like no pain, no gain, and all of that. We're not about that. We're about coming together, having a fabulous day out with your girlfriends, with your friends, achieving a goal. And it doesn't matter if that goal was short term, meaning you just decided last week that you're going to get up and do this, or whether you've decided to make it a long-term goal. Whatever that case may be, it's about achieving something and getting over that mindset hurdle that you might be telling yourself that says, I can't, and I'm not ready, or that's for other people, or I'm not fit enough, or I can't do what they're doing, so I'm not going to do it. These are all narratives that are incorrect. Absolutely, there are roadblocks for everyone at every stage of life. You may not be the fittest that you've ever been. You may not enjoy fitness the way that your best friend does or your colleague that goes to the gym 5 days a week. That might not be you, but that doesn't matter. We're not about that. We're about participation and just remembering your why. And come part of the movement. We have 3,500 women so far. We're still servicing women this year that have joined this journey. Every single person that stands in front of us is nervous at the exact same spot. Mm-hmm. They look at the workouts in the exact same way. They feel the exact same way about it until it starts. And then at the end, everyone goes, oh my gosh, I did it. And that's what I would just love to say is just come and do something just to say you did it. You don't have to do it again, but just do it, because you'll always remember that you did. Yeah. And it's different from maybe a marathon or a half or a 5K where you're required to be in something for a significant amount of time, like running. Your colleague outside was doing an ultra in Brazil. Absolutely incredible. You're going to do maybe 4 workouts that are 10 minutes long shared between friends. Like, it's not a lot, and you can scale that back to however you see fit. And I would just say, just give it a try and just see what happens at the end of it. Because I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. You spoke about before why Body Science decided to join Butterfly Effect, which we're so humbled and proud. So other than that, no, we're just so excited to be on this journey with you guys. And thank you.
Thank you so much.
No worries.